Joining us now, host of the Kudlow Report on CNBC and the Larry Kudlow Show on WMAL Saturdays at 7 p.m. Shockingly, the host of the Larry Kudlow Show is in fact named Larry Kudlow.
I would have never put that together.
I know. Well, that's what he's branding himself, and it's a very smart thing. Larry, thanks for joining us this morning.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
So I read with interest your latest column over at National Review where you basically do a bit of a victory lap. You got the sequesterer that you wanted.
Yep.
Congratulations. And, one thing really jumped out at me in this article, a great article, and I suggest everyone read it at nationalreview.com, where you point out the fact that Team Obama spent, trillions of dollars on their stimulus over the last 4 years, and we have the weakest economic recovery since 1947. Mm-hmm. This is the statement that stands out to me. If Keynesian spending was going to work, it would have already worked. Right. I mean, how many more years of begging for more and more and more spending do we have to endure from the Democrats before somebody stands up and says, hey, it ain't working? Well,
that's a good question. That's a very important question because I was disappointed. Even Republicans, they're all worried about cutting $44 billion. That's the actual cash outlay cut in fiscal 2013, okay? And then that rises over a period of time. So it's sort of a gradual glide path to you accumulate about $1.2 trillion. If you can't do that, you can't do anything. $44 billion is 0.25% of GDP. That's all it is. Now, my point here is cutting spending might actually help the economy. If the government is lower and more limited as a share of GDP, that frees up the private sector resources, which is where growth comes from. We tried the other way. We tried $1 trillion of stimulus. It didn't work. That's why this is the worst recovery since the post-World War II period. Try something different. That's what I'm saying. And basically, warts and all, I think the budget sequester does that. It's the beginning.
And Larry Kudlow, here we've got 4 years of deficit spending and a horrific, anemic recovery. Meanwhile, we just got the report from the CBO that this year we will bring in more money than we've ever brought in before, and that was under what? The Bush tax cuts. So that proves the other side of the equation, which is tax cuts bring in more money.
Well, that's true. Yes, I mean, I believe the right kind of tax cut will bring in more money. As a share of GDP, we're a little short on revenues, but it's rising again. Part of that is, unfortunately, the tax increase that we already saw in January. Part of that is we've had a mild economic recovery of about 2%. I mean, look, if you had economic growth, let's say of 4% instead of 2%, you'd have those revenues rolling in.
Right.
And more incomes, more revenues, more tax payments, and so forth and so on. So we need to focus on economic growth. And I'm not saying the sequester is the end-all, be-all. I mean, we need pro-growth tax reform, especially corporate tax reform. We need that desperately to get those corporate tax rates down and those crony loopholes out. But all I'm saying on the sequester is don't be so timid. This is okay. There is no catastrophe scenario. If, in my judgment at least, if President Obama believes he's going to point the finger at Republicans and say, you caused an economic catastrophe, and that's going to overturn the House in 2014, I don't think that's true. I think that's bad logic. So go on ahead with do it. Fund it through the continuing resolution, as apparently is going to be the case. I'm seeing Mr. Boehner for an interview, Speaker Boehner, tomorrow. We'll talk more about this. Stay on this path, and then let's go after some of the entitlement reforms, and let's go after some of the pro-growth tax reforms.
All right, Larry, so the stock market's been looking fairly bold lately. I'm reading here that it's only 37 points shy of its all-time record, and if I can add, I mean, there's a question about that, but if I can add, that comes up to the record high is 14,165.
Right.
How real is this?
Oh, it's real. It's real. I mean, look, stocks are basically, I think, reflecting two factors. One is profits. If you look at the rise in stocks going all the way back to the bottom in 2009, it almost equals the increase in profits, about 130%, by the way. So as I always say, profits are the mother's milk of stocks. That's important. And secondly, the Fed has greased the wheels with a very easy monetary policy of extremely low interest rates and a lot of liquidity that they poured into the economy. Hasn't really worked so much well for the economy, frankly, but it has greased the wheels in the financial markets. So, okay, fine. Rising profits, an easy Fed. I don't think that's going to change. So therefore, even with slow growth and inadequate job creation, I'm a stock market bull right now, and I think the stock market is going to run. It is going to make new highs. And, fits and starts, corrections come and go, and I'm not a timing guy. But I think the next year has a positive stock market outlook.
And gold? Because gold's been taking a hit, right?
Yeah, I don't like gold. It's funny. Rising stocks can or cannot exist with gold. I mean, there's no perfect correlation.
No, there's not.
There's no inflation right now. Bernanke got that right in his hearing yesterday or last week. Really, the inflation under Bernanke is, 2% or slightly less. I know we have periodic gasoline movements, but they don't really amount to much in the aggregate. So I wouldn't buy gold. I'd buy stocks. I would buy stocks. I have a diverse stock market portfolio. The dollar looks pretty firm to me. I like that. Japan is easing big time. They're trying to get out of deflation. I think that adds to world liquidity and maybe some better growth, but it's good for stock markets. People are a little worried about China right now, tightening up their property markets. That's something we should keep an eye on, but I don't think they're going to go overboard. At least I hope not. So, yeah, color me. I'm still optimistic. I mean, look, 2% growth here in the States is inadequate. Let me just make that point. Going back to the sequester. Keep the heat on spending. Now let's try to tackle entitlements, which is the ultimate issue.
Right.
And let's try to tackle tax reform, please, particularly corporate tax reform for large and small businesses. Give them new incentives. Let them keep more what they earn. And I think you'll get a stronger economy. I think
watch things start to explode. That's right.
Well, that's why he's the sage, Larry Kudlow.
Listen, I mean, how great is it that the people who listen to this program get to hear advice like that from Larry Kudlow?
I know. Usually he charges.
No, we don't.
No, it's free actually, but you can get it. That kind of the convergence of politics and business is what Larry Kudlow specializes in.
Thank you.
The Kudlow Report on CNBC, and of course the Larry Kudlow Show here on WMAL Saturdays 7 p.m.